Hello, my name is Kimberly. I wanted to share what the Safe and Sound Protocol has done for my little guy. He's 5 years old. He's an amazing little one. A little bit of background, he came to us at 2 years old through the foster care system. And from the time I met him, I was completely in love, as many adoptive parents understand that feeling. I also knew we were in for a lot of challenges, and honestly, I never thought we would be where we are now. I'm forever grateful for Dr. Porges and his work and the Safe and Sound Protocol because it has truly been life-changing for my son. I'm going to kind of go over some of his diagnosis so that anyone that can relate has knowledge of him. He has been diagnosed with moderate to autism or level 2 autism, fetal alcohol syndrome, disinhibited social engagement disorder or RAD, ADHD, hyperkinesis, frontal lobe deficit, and conduct disorder. I believe those are the main ones that would relate to the things that I'm going to share with you. So when he came to us, he was a very aggressive, yet very happy and joyful. But when he wasn't, he was extremely aggressive, and it would seemingly come out of nowhere. But we could tell that he had no control over these emotions, and he was having rages that were over an hour long, and there were multiple times a day, and there just wasn't much you could do to help him. You just had to try and keep him safe. In these rages, there's the screaming, there's the crying, there's the aggression towards you, himself, the self-harm. Post Safe and Sound Protocol, we're not experiencing daily meltdowns or rages, definitely not rages. We don't see the screaming like we used to, or, we see something that's more of a typical toddler meltdown, as what I would call it. He's able to suddenly regulate his emotions in a manner that even if he does get upset, he can come out of it very quickly. And that's why I feel like it's very typical now. That's a huge thing for us. It had gotten to where I could not take him to the grocery store even alone. We would go with his behavior therapist a couple times a week, and every time we would go, he'd have anywhere between 2 to 3 meltdowns each time, and it would consist of him just for seemingly no reason usually. Of course, we know that it's a combination of sensory issues and then just going into fight or flight, but he would just drop to the floor and start climbing everything he could climb, throwing everything he could throw, growling at people, attacking me. And so it was just, we could not go anywhere without a backpack leash because he constantly was trying to run. Any moment he could, he would run. It was the only way we could keep him safe. Now, after doing the SSP, we go places and I don't have to use the backpack leash. I take it more as a precaution now. Very rarely would he take away from me, but even when he does, if you request for him to come back, he's gonna come back, and that would have never happened before. It had gotten to the point where we wouldn't take him outside because he could get outside of our fence, and when he did, he would run and go to the neighbors and cross the street. It was a huge safety factor. So those are major changes for us. Looking here, he's the calmest we've ever seen him. Prior to the SSP, he's still very active, and he definitely has his attentive moments, that more so than other children, but he's also much different. So he can focus now where before he couldn't. You could put him in front of a game, an iPad, anything, and it would never hold his attention more than a minute, maybe sometimes a few minutes, but he'd be gone. Now he's able to sit for periods of time alone and do things on his own. Like I mentioned, he's not constantly bolting. Prior to SSP, he literally was trying to escape our house on a constant basis. I would catch him. We live in Fort Knox. I mean, it's not just the exterior of the house. He would try to get to any and everything in the house. We had to lock up desired foods, because he would just engorge in them. Also meltdowns from that constantly. He wanted it, and if he didn't get it, it was just a constant source of meltdowns as well. Now, post SSP, I can't tell you the last time he's tried to escape our house. He's gone out the fence twice, I think. But even those times, if we request that he comes back, he comes back. It might take some time for him to work it out, but he does come back. We don't have to run to our neighbors and get him, and that's amazing. Also going shopping, I can take him places without assistance, and we did the SSP almost a year ago, and I would say that we've had maybe 4 meltdowns in the store when we go, and they were nothing near as severe as what we were dealing with. The last meltdown that I had when I took him to a store by myself lasted almost an hour, and it ended with many strangers coming and trying to help me keep him safe. I had a lady buy me a bottle of wine as I was leaving. That's how intense it was. And I just realized at that point I could never take him, or I thought I could never take him alone again. And I'm saying all of this just so you can understand how much he has changed. As far as him being as calm as ever, the other point with that is we used to give him 0.2 milligrams of clonidine every night to go to sleep. And about 2 weeks after doing the first round of SSP, he started becoming so lethargic that he fell asleep during ABA therapy, and no one could wake him. I had to go get him. He did eventually wake, and he was okay, but we just realized that the clonidine, even though we were giving it to him at night, it was too much for his system. It had regulated his heart rate that much that he was no longer amped up all the time. And so we took him off completely, and he was amazing. He was just as calm as he was prior to taking him off of it. And we did end up putting him back on a quarter tablet of 1 tablet, just because it helps him go back to sleep at night if he wakes up. But that is it. And that was an amazing difference for us. Before SSP, he could never accept being told he couldn't have something, or no, or not getting his way. It would always turn into a meltdown. That's why I say they happened all the time. After SSP, it's like he could suddenly accept no, and that's life-changing too. Deeper conversations. Our little guy, he's great at communicating, and he's always so much fun to talk to. But after the SSP, he would just go in depth in conversations. He would ask questions. He was just more inquisitive, and that happened a couple weeks after doing the SSP. Along with that, he could process cause and effect. Even in the moment, where before strategy, like behavior charts, things like that would never work with him, because he was in that fight or flight all the time, and he wasn't able to process cause and effect. Now, after doing the SSP, he can not only think about what might happen if he does something, but he started verbally expressing that if I do this, this is going to happen out loud. And it was just so wonderful to hear him voice these things that we never saw him even think about. He's always been an affectionate little guy, but when it came to I love yous, I usually only heard them at bedtime when he was really tired and laying in bed, and he'd say, I love you, Mommy, or if it was being reciprocal of when I said it and he said it back. Post SSP, he was saying it all day long. I mean, obviously that's an exaggeration, but he said it many, many times throughout the day, and he would not only say that, just other cute little things. He was just much more affectionate. He always liked to be all over you. He's a sensory seeker, but just the hugs and everything that we were getting, they're just more, I don't know how they're more because he was already very affectionate, but just all the time. It can be a little bit overwhelming, but I know it's a good thing and it's an amazing thing and we're thankful for it. And this is just things that I can think of sharing. Compliance, of course, with all of this comes, anytime we would ask him to do something, it was no, shut up, you know. I mean, of course he said it much more angrily. I feel like it was pretty much 100% non-compliance most of the time, and it was very hard. After the SSP, we got about, I'd say 50% of the time he would listen, and it was just amazing, and it's only continued to improve. We did do some other therapies that I think helped with the compliance in a big way, but I know that it wouldn't have happened without the SSP. And so that was huge. I mean, every day I sit back and I think about where he's come from and where we are now. And it's overwhelming. Just getting him in a car seat daily used to end in him beating up on me, pulling my hair, scratching me, spitting at me, punching. And it was such a struggle, and to keep him safe and get him in there. I can't tell you the last time. It's no longer even an issue. I mean, it's just things like that. Looking here. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Thank you. Just simple things that we always tried to teach him, and he would say, but it was always prompted, pretty much always prompted, or it was like pulling teeth a lot of times. It was reluctant. All of a sudden after the SSP, he just started, yes ma'am, yes sir, thank you. Of course not all the time, but often, and it was just something very noticeable for us that we weren't seeing. Another thing that changed that was, a lot of this was unexpected, especially to the extremes that we've seen it, but another thing that I had no idea to expect was his handwriting, coloring, and drawing. The first time we did SSP, all of a sudden, I had a little magnetic drawing pad, and he just started drawing on it. Never had I ever seen him draw anything willingly. Even if I tried to get him to draw something, or his teachers tried to get him to draw something, he would only draw like a few shapes, and that was it. Suddenly he started drawing a heart for me, and I asked him to draw a stick person, and he did. And so anything that I would draw on there, he would repeat, or he would copy and do himself. And that was shocking to me because, again, never have we seen that. His handwriting drastically changed. And it was just soon after the SSP, just like everything else. I want to say most of it we saw within a couple of weeks. Coloring, he used to just scribble over the page. He had gotten to the point where he would scribble with different colors over objects, but it would still just be completely out of lines, and just the whole page was scribble. After SSP, all of a sudden he started coloring in the lines, and he'd make sure the whole object was colored, and that never happened before. So it was just very interesting to see. It still amazes me. So I mean, this covers little bits here and there of what we experienced, but this is a child that every therapist we've seen, neuropsychologist, his pediatrician, they have all told us to be looking at residential treatment facilities because he was only getting stronger and his emotional regulation was non-existent. And as scary as that was for us to hear, we knew where it was coming from, and we were worried too. And I no longer worry. I no longer worry for him. I feel like my worries for him are much more in line with what every parent worries about for their child. And we are just forever grateful for the Safe and Sound protocol and Dr. Porges. And so we wanted to share our story. And I hope that anyone that's willing to listen will do their research and see about trying this amazing protocol.